Hello, welcome or welcome back to Erratic Endeavours, the little part of the internet where I'll be documenting my attempts to hopefully make some lovely things. For this video's endeavour, I'm going to be making something out of a set of curtain panels that a friend of mine was getting rid of. They no longer wanted them, so I said I'll take them and I'll do something with them. And I've decided to make a dress because I've made a dress out of a pair of curtains before and it ended up being one of my most worn self-made garments, so why not have another. So I made that dress with a sewing pattern, but this time I'd like to try and draft something. So I think with one of the panels I'm just going to use that for a skirt because it's already got a finished hem, so why not work smarter, not harder. And I'm going to draft something for the top. I'm not really sure what that is yet, but let's get to drafting and figure it out. I started this drafting process by tracing out my front bodice block and putting the back aside for later. I then extended the darts up to the apex point and drew a line from the apex to the shoulder so that I could create a shoulder princess seam, removing the darts to create this single seam line. As usual for me, I forgot to draw notches for landmarking later, so I added these in now. As I knew it would be a layering piece at this point, I adjusted the shoulder and side seam and redrew the armhole to adjust the look of the final piece. This was also a little test, as I've been having some concerns about the shoulder width of my bodice and knew that this wouldn't be negatively affected overall if it ended up being a little too far in towards my neck. I then finished cutting out the side front piece and set it aside, and moved on to the centre front section. I marked a point around 5 inches down from the neckline and squared this off to create the new neckline, adding a mark onto the side front piece to indicate where it should match up later. I also smoothed off the apex point to hopefully help the fit of the final piece. I finished the front up by labelling each piece before moving on to the back of the bodice. I traced the basic back bodice out and then marked an inch in from the outer shoulder edge. Using the side front piece, I marked out where the shoulder seam should end so that I could know where my princess seam should be placed and connected this point to the top of my dart. I also marked where the side seam should end so that it can match later and redrew the armhole. I then marked a point around 6 inches down from the neckline and squared that off to create the new back neckline and placed a mark on the point that it connects to the side back piece before labelling them. I then separated the side piece from the centre back up the dart and along the line I had connected to the shoulder and cut out the centre back piece before I removed the dart fullness to create the princess seam. I then drew some notches to match up later before cutting out the side piece as well. Here are the pattern pieces that I've drafted for what I've named the curtain dress number 2, because I have another curtain dress. From left to right, we've got the front panel, the side front panel, the side back, and the centre back. And this is how I drafted it, but since then I've made the mock-up. Well, it's not a mock-up because I've just used the curtain itself. So it's actually my outer fabric. And that I tried that on, pinned it all together, tried it on, and that fit fine, but I obviously Since I drafted the pattern and I decided that I was going to do it as more of a wrap dress rather than a dress with a zip or buttons or anything, I did have to adjust it to try and work out how to do the wrap dress portion. I've got that on the mannequin, so I'll show you that now. So this is where I'm at with the outer portion of the bodice for this dress. And as you can see, what I've done is I put this on to make sure that it fit and everything. And once I had it on me, I just kind of folded these down where it felt like it looked nice, where it felt comfortable and it looked good. So that's what we're going with for the front of the dress. And then we're going to connect here and the underside of the bodice with ties. So I'm just going to add one to each side and then leave, I think I'm going to sew into the side seam a little hole, a little gap, like a little buttonhole, so that the tie can come through there. And then that'll just tie around the back. So that should be really comfy and adjustable, which we love an adjustable dress. And then what I did after that is once I took it off, I traced around this piece so that I had a copy of the new pattern piece for the front section of this bodice, so that when I make the lining, I'll be able to get it pretty similar to this. And then if I want to make this again in future, I've got an exact idea of how I got that pattern piece. So fingers crossed that works out. Here's the piece that I traced from the outer part of the bodice. And I did literally just put it on the paper and trace around it with a pencil, which is why there is seam allowance on the bottom and on the side, but there's not on the edges that were, well, this edge that was joined to the side piece and this edge, which is just the folded down line. So I didn't want to, I need to add seam allowance to that because that's where I want it to end up. So I need to make sure that I keep that line in place. So for the lining pieces, I'll be cutting out from this pattern piece instead of the original pattern piece. And then that way I won't have to waste any fabric. But it does mean that if I want to use this pattern and add a zip or anything like that, I can keep a straight front if I want to, or I do have the option to keep it as the wrap front and use this traced pattern that I've done. So I need to do that now. I need to find something to line this with and cut some lining out, and then that way we can put the bodice together. I've just finished sewing the bodice and the lining together, so now it's delightfully lined. I've just put a bit of understitching on that front edge, and I need to try and see whether or not this fabric will press. I do need to just hand sew the shoulder seams together because of the way that I've done them. What I did was attach the lining and the outer right sides facing each other along the whole top edge, and then I sewed around the whole thing and then turned it right side out, and then I've attached it to the shoulder. So I just left those two shoulder seams open so that I could turn it inside out. It's not a method that I've tried before, and it has kind of worked, but it's quite hard to get those shoulder seams to match up. So I'm not sure how much I like it, but we'll see. Maybe I just need to try it again on something else. I've just finished sewing the ties together, so that's the next job, is to attach those to these two front panels. So I just left those open to attach those there. And then we'll get the pockets on the skirt, and then the skirt attached to the bodice, and that basically should be it. So I think I better get the ironing board out. Patch pockets are on the skirt. Really happy with how they've turned out. Apologies if you can hear my cat snoring in the background. She's chosen to steal my chair today, so that's fun. Yeah, so I didn't plan for them to turn out matching the background pattern, but they kind of have, and I'm quite happy with how it looks. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for me. I did press everything, and as I suspected, it doesn't really iron very well, so I am just going to go ahead and put everything together now. It's just the skirt to go onto the bodice, and then the whole thing will be done. I have put some top stitching on the tie, just to kind of get rid of some of the puffiness, though I may end up changing that. The fabric's a little bit grippy, so it's not ideal for the tie, but we'll see how I get on with it, I think. For the skirt, I'm going to attach the front quite flat and then either gather or pleat the back. I'm not sure. Probably pleats. cap dress. I'm really happy with the design that I ended up going with, and I often wear layering pieces. Like, I like to wear lots of layers to keep me warm, and the skirt of this is great, especially with the pockets. I absolutely adore the pockets. They've turned out so well. There's definitely some areas that I need to improve on, and it's really highlighted that I am still learning. So I need to work on the understitching. I think that would be a really useful skill because it's so useful in many things. So perhaps a fabric that's less iron averse might help with that, but also I know it's just it's a skill issue. I also, for the second time in a row, I'm not happy with the tie, but I think it's because this fabric is so thick that it's just a bit resistant to wanting to form a bow. So perhaps I might have to change that, or at least add something to it just to make it have a bit less friction. But yeah, I love a layering piece, so I'll definitely be able to incorporate this, and given the temperatures we're currently having, it's going to be really helpful. Little post for me edit. I took the dress off and oh my gosh, I was covered in sparkly fabric, which when I was using the curtains, like when I was cutting the pieces out, it did shed everywhere, but I was hoping that once it was in one piece it would be fine, but it is not. Potentially it will be fine if I wash the dress, but I'm not optimistic because I washed the top that I was wearing under the dress and it just covered everything that was in the wash in sparkles. Now normally I'm not opposed to sparkles, but controlled sparkles, not mess sparkles, because them getting everywhere means I have to worry about it being on my cat, and I don't want them to be ingesting that. So this dress might be a bit of a lost cause. It's so sad that I've got to waste those pockets, but at least I've got the pattern. I can make something else. So yeah, thank you for watching. I don't know when I'll be back, but hopefully not too long. In the meantime, good luck with your own endeavours, and I'll see you soon. Bye.